Welcome to PHT in the Morning with your host, Pastor David Miller from the Pentecostal Holiness Tabernacle in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Good morning and welcome to PHT in the Morning with Pastor David Miller. I am Pastor Miller and we are so glad to be with you here again today on this podcast. And we are coming to you live from West Yellowstone, Montana. We have been out here traveling throughout the West, and we just saw some of God's great, beautiful things and some of the great things He has created. And creation is just beautiful. We've already came through the Badlands, the Black Hills, Mount Rushmore, and Cody, and several places like that. And we got a long way to go from here. But I wanted to share with you a little bit today. And while I was looking, seeing all of this beauty and all the great things that God has created, I couldn't help but think of the scriptures. And I want to talk to you about this today, about God's creation. And I guess I would title this, I believe that God created it all. I believe God created it all. Now, there's some scriptures found, matter of fact, the very first words in the Bible, the Old Testament, Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. And that verse says, in the beginning, God created the heavens, or the heaven rather, and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light and said it was good. And He divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and He called the darkness night. And then He goes on to talk about that was what happened the first day. Verse 4, the Bible said this was, the morning and evening was, actually this is too significant to pass it by. But verse number 5 said, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So the Bible goes on to tell us a lot more, and He talks about that the Lord divided the firmament in the midst of the waters, and He said He divided the waters from the waters. God made the firmament and divided the waters that was under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. So He called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So I don't want to go too much detail here about all these things in here, but I just want to talk about creation, because I'm talking about, I believe God created it all. Everything you can see, everything you can touch, I believe God created it all. Now, you start at verse 10 here in Genesis 1. It said God called the dry land earth. He called the water the seas. And He said that was good. And then He told the earth to bring forth grass. Now I'm going to get into my story here in just a moment. Stay with me here. And the herb yielding seed, and the fruit trees yielding after its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and so it was so. So He talks about all this, about the trees and the herbs and so on. That was the third day. But then He goes on and talks about these two great lights. One was the sun and one was the moon. The greater light ruled the day, or the sun. The lesser light, or the moon, they ruled the night. And He also made the stars. God set them in the firmament to give light upon the earth. And I want to go down here where it said that God said in verse number 20, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, the fowl that it may fly above the earth, in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the water brought forth abundantly, after their kind, and every winged fowl after its kind. And God saw that that was good. So I'm talking about God's creation, and I believe he created everything. And I've already told you what prompted me to talk about this is all of the wildlife and all the rivers and the streams and all the waterfalls and the Rocky Mountains and all the vast beauty that I've seen the last couple of days. Now, this is not my first trip. My wife and I have came 30 different times, 30 different years, and toured this part of the country. But it seems to be more beautiful every time to us. Now, when it talked about the great whales, I preached many times in Hawaii, 3 different islands over there. We preached on the Big Island, the island of Oahu, and the island of Kauai. And we have seen many whales over there. I've seen them jump up almost out of the water. I've watched them blow through that, what's called their blowhole at the top behind their neck and shoot the water straight up into the air. We actually took a whale watching tour one year and saw many whales and their calves as they came right close to the vessel that we was on. We was on a large vessel, and when that one whale came by, it looked like it was almost as big as the vessel we was on. Probably not, but it was close. Now, when I see this, I see the whales and everything that's in the sea. It makes me think, how great is our God? Then he said, and every winged fowl and after its kind, all of those that could fly above the waters. Isn't it great when we see God's nature? And the Bible said God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters of the seas and let the fowl multiply in the earth. And that was the evening and morning was the 5th day. Then the Bible said in verse number 24, and God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after its kind, cattle, creeping thing, beast of the earth, after its kind, and it was so. God made the beast of the earth, the next verse, verse 25, after its kind, the cattle after its kind, everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw it was good. So he's naming everything in the seas. He's talking about every fowl or winged fowl that flies above the earth. Then he comes and he mentions cows and many creatures, but then he says, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after its kind. Now, I believe God created every single bit. And, you know, I know back home where I'm from and in Ohio, there's a lot of beautiful things and beautiful wildlife right there. But as we came out here and we began to see hundreds of antelopes and literally hundreds and hundreds, probably more like thousands of buffalo And we've seen moose. Now, some of our groups split up, and one of my deacons who's with us went a different direction, but he came back tonight and told me he saw a bear. So, I'm not trying to give you a history lesson on Yellowstone Park. I'm only trying to tell you, if you could see the beauty that's walking on the face of the earth, like these large creatures, like the bison or buffaloes, I call it, or a moose, or even the cattle and horses that we saw, and the antelope, the mule deer. We've seen all kinds of bighorn sheep, rams, and Dall sheep, different kinds. And when I look at them, I just can't help but say, praise be to our God, glory to our God, because the Bible said he created it all. And then God said, let us make man in our image. Now, I love wildlife. I like to see it. Now, I haven't yet this year, but 2 years ago when we was out here, we saw a couple of bald eagles. We even seen a nesting golden eagle. And it was just so beautiful to see all of these things in nature. And I love that. But when I look here at verse 26, then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. And I like this part for everyone listening. Male and female created he them. I love that. So I'm just going to go back, and we've been talking about the earth and its beauty. And I didn't even talk to you earlier, but I've seen the volcanoes on the Big Island, and saw all kinds of wonderful sights, like just beautiful things. Today, we saw many, many geysers as they were shooting forth. Some of them probably 100 foot in the air. All those things are great. And all the animals and all of those winged fowls, so great. But God also said, let us make man. That's us. Every one of you listening are men or women listening. And we're the only one, the only species that was created in God's image, after God's likeness. That's what verse number 26 tells us. We're created in God's image after his likeness. He said, let them, or us, have dominion over the fish, over the fowl, over the cattle, over the earth, and over everything that creepeth on the earth. So today, we are blessed being men and women, because God has blessed us above all the creatures and everything in and under the earth. And he's given mankind dominion over it. So we have dominion over that. Then the next verse, it's almost repeating itself, but it said God created man in his image, in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And I like this. Just like he said about the things that was in the sea, the whales, the fish. But now he says not only about the fowls or the beast, but about man. He said, God blessed men and women. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, or take dominion over it. We have dominion over this earth. And he said then, after he said subdue it, he said, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, and every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So friend, I don't know if I've been a blessing or not. I've tried, but I believe God did create it all. I just wish everyone, if you've been out in this area, you know how beautiful it is. If you haven't, and you ever get to come and visit some of these national parks in the West and see all the beauty, and then realize God created that. When I saw that herd of buffalo today, I just looked and said, God created that. As I stood in front of Yellowstone Lake that was partially frozen over with 27 church members from my church, we sang a song and had prayer and blessed the Lord for all those great things that we have seen today. Truly, our God's a powerful God. He's a great God. He's a mighty God. And wherever you're at, I just wish anywhere you look, anything you see, I want you to realize God created it all. And anything man has made, God created the substance that we have took as men and made those things. So thank God for all the things God created. Well, I hope I've been a blessing. And until the next episode, I just want to say, I pray that the blessings of God goes with you. And I pray you have a great rest of your day.